Thank you. Well, one of the things that I'm hoping to prove with this presentation, or hoping to accomplish with these kinds of presentations, is to show that the topic of U.S. Hispanics is a topic for all of us. It's not just for Hispanics, and you'll see why hopefully after this. Now, some of you that have seen some of the presentations I've done before in other venues, there are a couple of slides that might be the same because we need to get a base for everyone, so we're all talking about the same thing. So let me get started by some of the basics. How many Latinos do we have here today? So consider yourself Latinos. Okay, so we have 4. This is probably the highest ratio I've seen anywhere. I went to Texas and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna 2 cities. I'm gonna be this is nothing. And so the idea is really to get people to get more Latinos involved in our secular movement. Let me ask another question, of course. So what's the correct term? Is it Latino or Hispanic? Anyone take a guess? All right. So yeah. So if you talk to the people in the West Coast, they tend to like Latino more. If you talk to people in the East Coast, they call themselves Hispanics more. Most of the time, they don't care as long as you include them in stuff. The term is interchangeably. So I've had some people that after these meetings come to me and say, "Hey, listen, neither one is right. You need to, but we need to find a term so we know what we're talking about." And that's why. So we'll call it. You've seen the presentation. Latino Hispanics is pretty much the same. And a lot of people have the thinking that Latinos are recent immigrants to the United States, or they think of illegal immigration. They think of all the issues we've had. And all of it. But Latinos have been here far longer than African Americans have been in the United States since the 1500s. Now, keep in mind that California, New Mexico, Arizona, Florida, all that was Spanish speaking. It was all owned by the Spaniards. So anyway, going there. So why should we care? Why even bring up this topic? Why talk about this ethnicity? And this is why. These are 2010 numbers. So there are actually 53 million Hispanics in the United States, and growing because we're a loving people. We like to make love a lot, and so there are a lot of children being born. So that's about 16% of the population. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that African Americans make up 12% of the population, and they already have a president. And no, we're on our way over here with Juan Mendez. I think we got a while, to go. So just to put things in perspective, that means that today, 1 in every 6 Americans is Latino, is Hispanic, and that means 1/4 of the children are Hispanic. So we have to worry about those numbers, because, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But 56% of the population growth was due to the Latinos. Well, it's a $1 trillion expenditure, and we can go from there on all kinds of things. Now, what happens if we ignore the Latinos? Ask Mitt Romney. I mean, I saw the things 2 days after the elections, and I was shocked to see some of the big talking heads in the Republican Party come and say, "Shit, it's screwed up. We should have not ignored the Latinos." And talking to someone local here who was working for the Mitt Romney campaign, they said, we only got a few weeks to work on this, 8 weeks to work here in Nevada. And I mean, as you can see in the bottom corner, the numbers, they did make a difference. So the Hispanics made a difference. And really the question comes, do we want to make that same mistake? Do we want to ignore this huge growing population when it comes to secularism? So, they can't claim they didn't know about it. These are actually, covers from Time Magazine that talk about the Latinos growing, that they're voting, and so on and so forth. And they just figured, not necessary. We look a lot like, as a community, we look a lot like the Republicans ethnicity-wise. It's very, white, older males that tend to be humanist and so forth. And that's changing, and I'm glad to see that changing. There's a lot of women being involved, a lot more minorities. Recently, in the conferences that I've attended, I've seen more minorities than I've ever seen before, so that's a good thing. Just a little quick picture to show the size of this. I mean, you can see in the picture in the left a representation of how many Hispanics we have, and if we ignore that segment, what that can do to our country. And by 2060, 1 in 3 Americans is expected to be Hispanic. So if they're believing in woo-hoo and they're not really reality-based, then who knows what kind of treatment we're going to be getting as old people, because we're going to be old by that time, and I'll be dead, so I'll be fine. But do you want to have homeopathy or the real stuff? That kind of thing. There's some good things. 60% of Latinos support same-sex marriage. So the problem is they can be turned easily, and we saw that in California. The Latinos voted to stop same-sex marriage in California, and then a couple of years later, it's like, oops, yeah, now we support it. But it's because there's some influence in religion, and we all know that the Mormon Church pumped millions and millions of dollars, and they got together with the Catholics to do that. The good thing is, Hispanics are leaving the Catholic Church in huge numbers. The question is, where the hell are they going? So we'll talk about that in a second. Now, the good thing is, as you can see, one of the things about Latinos is that they're looking to become assimilated and become part of it. Since Latinos come in all shapes, forms, flavors, colors, everything, you can't tell fairly often by looking at someone if they're Latino sometimes, and unless they claim it, and the idea, I mean, I wish I could have gotten rid of my accent. I tried really hard, but it's part of becoming American. Now, the good thing is my son, who was born here, he has no accent. He's, Virginia accent, but that's it. And we have to be careful because according to some statistics, today 18% of Latinos change religion. So they are leaving the Catholic Church, but and the nuns are growing some, but we'll see that that's not nearly enough. Now, so who's noticing these Latinos are available, sort of, waiting? Now, the thing about Latinos is we're trying to integrate, we're trying to become part of America, part of this country, and so they tend to be pretty open-minded. They tend to sit down and listen more to what you have to say and what others have to say. And so when I go into some of the Latino neighborhoods in Virginia, I see them standing outside the shopping areas where Latino shops are, and the Pentecostals are there, the Mormons are there. They're all trying over there to convince people to come in to their camp, teaching them English and citizen classes and everything. But notice this slide, interesting. Islam is after the Latinos also. There are 2 mosques in New York City now that are 100% Latino, and we have one forming in Chicago. And the thing with a lot of the Latinos and a lot of converts to other religions is they so often tend to be more radical than the people. They're trying to make up for lost time, and they try to show that they're really believers and everything. And so it's sad. You can see from this Facebook page that I pulled in this morning that 5,900 people have liked the Muslim stuff. Who else is after Latinos? The Pope is Latino for the first time ever, not a coincidence. You have the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Pentecostals. Question is, do we want to do it? Now, this is a recent Time cover. Shows the Latino Reformation, talks about how they're converting to becoming far more Christian and so forth. And there are schools now that are learning how to debate in Spanish, that are learning how to do apologetics. And William Lane Craig is throwing a lot of money at the Latinos because he knows that that's part of the movement, part of the future in America. So real quickly, what we do in HAFree is our ultimate goal is not to exist. We're the first Hispanic nonprofit organization, educational, and we're here because we try to understand the cultures and subcultures of the Latinos to try to get them to come out and say that it's okay. Now, we have a program that we go to the high schools and we present to a lot of the kids, and mostly ESL students, mostly Latinos, and we talk about some of the myths that they have in our culture. And we try to show them that this doesn't work. I initially come in dressed with a white coat and have them, and then immediately as I come in, before I even get introduced, I saw I forgot something and I leave, and the teacher will ask him, well, who is that? What do you think he does for a living? And people say, oh, he's a doctor, he's this and that. And then I come back, with a regular jacket and tell them, no, I'm actually an engineer. I'm not a doctor. And to show them that just because someone dresses with a white coat points to an ointment and says, this is good for you, buy it, that you shouldn't buy it, that you should actually do your homework and all of that. We had, in telling one of them, hey, you need to do ghost on excess. He said, but my aunt saw one and she never lies. And I said, I'm not saying she didn't see one or she didn't think she saw one, but I've seen a woman cut in half in Las Vegas in a show. And just because you see something, it doesn't mean that it exists. So trying to teach these things to the kids is really critical. Now, why do we do this? And some of you might have heard this example before. In that school system, there is this girl, Marcela Jimenez, 15, from Ecuador, really good student and everything. She doesn't participate in after-school activities because she has to go clean houses with her mom. Her mom is a single parent. Her mom never went to high school. The mom won't show up to school for parent-teacher meetings. And next year, when she turns 16, mom wants her out of school to go work with her because they need the money. And I told her, I said, look, I'll adopt you, I'll do whatever. You got to go to college. You got to get a degree in physics. That's what she wants. She wants to be an astrophysicist. And so sometimes the problem is not the kids. It's not the culture that the kids have. A lot of kids are happy being bilingual, bicultural. They can handle both things. They take the good stuff from both sides. And so sometimes we find ourselves trying to work with the parents, which is far more difficult because they're not as open-minded as the kids are. But we still have to continue. Remember, when smoking stopped in this country, or when it got really low, some of you are not old enough to know that, but 20 years ago, everyone smoked everywhere. There were ashtrays everywhere. So community college was referred to as, the high school where you can smoke. But nowadays it was through the children, it was through people, kids going home and telling their parents it's bad for you and all of that. So we want to create that also, and that's it's something that is important. So what's the solution to this? After a lot of talking, after listening to Dr. Sikivu, after listening to Greta Christina and some others, and looking at the Latino nucleus family, we realized that the woman is really the one that is in charge of the integrity of the morality of the house. She's the one that drags people to church. She's the one that teaches the kids to pray in the morning or at night before they go to bed, and so on and so forth. And some studies are showing that when a woman gets converted in a Latino family, usually the family will follow afterwards. Within a couple of years, the rest of the family. But when a male converts, usually he's the only odd one and no one really follows him. So when it comes to morality, and I mean, I've said this before, and it's machismo that goes on. A girl can stay out until 9 p.m. only, and the boy can stay out all night if he wants to. If a boy loses his virginity at 17, no one cares. If it's the girl, all hell breaks loose. So there's a lot of machismo that is still going on in the families, and there's a lot of part of the culture that we inherited from the Spaniards, from the Catholic Church, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that we have to do is try to change those roles. And I'll show you there's some differences. So most Americans, mainstream Americans, when they're afraid to come out is because they're afraid that they're going to be ostracized, that they're not going to, no one's going to talk to me, I'm going to get kicked out of my house, all that kind of stuff. In the Latinos, it's usually the opposite. Like, I don't want to hurt grandma, I love her so much, and she'll just be destroyed if she finds out I'm an atheist, and so forth. But I've had some Latinos come and tell me, you know what? I told my grandma, I told my mom, and yes, they cried, and they argued, and they yelled, they screamed and everything, but 6 months later, my grandma is the best advocate. When I'm not around and the rest of the family is bad-mouthing me, she's the one that defends me and tells me I have the right to believe in other things. So that can be changed, and that's just because the culture is that way doesn't, we have to question it, and sometimes culture is treated as a religion, and that's the difficult part. We need to be able to say that questioning Latino culture and removing those things that are nasty is our goal, and we should try to do that and start a new culture and start a new Latino thing where there's more equality among women, between men and women. So priority one is young Latinos. We must get them to be better educated. Right now, a lot of the Latino parents don't encourage their girls to go to college, to become independent, to get a career. We need to tell girls early on that it's okay not to have a religion or to have very little religion. I mean, our goal is not to convert everyone to atheism or anything like that. It's really to cool off the religion part. It's really to get them more educated, to tell them that it's okay to not have kids, to grow up, to be self-realized by having a career, to delay marriage. I mean, we no longer that at age 28 or 29 or 30. You know, we don't have to start procreating at age 16. I go to these high schools and I see a lot of the young girls pregnant. And of course, the church says no to abortion, so they fuck up their lives, is really what it comes down to. Because by the time that kid that kid grows up, well, now they're already in a pattern. They already feel down, already feel like, I'm a loser kind of thing. And we have to change how we Latinos think about ourselves so we can help others. And the last line says it all. A lot of women don't feel, in the Latino community, don't feel that they're realized unless they're popping kids out. So we need to say that it's okay to have one kid, to have it later on. So some good things is that Hispanics love and trust the internet a lot. They actually use the internet more than mainstream Americans. Through cell phones, through a lot of ways, but they do. And the numbers from Pew Research show that. Now, with 56 million Americans, we don't want the Latinos to be that anchor that drags, stops the United States from becoming a more secular nation. So, some ideas, because I'm running out of time. We need to encourage girls to seek STEM education. There aren't enough Latinos studying the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We need to help Latino women that are professionals to become mentors, encourage them, CEO scientists and so on, so they can show that there are ways of breaking those traditional roles. High school dropout rates, need to be, worked on. 51% of the national kids drop out of high school, they don't graduate. And we must stop the cycle of poverty, which is really the key to them. Poverty and dogma, religious dogma, go hand in hand, because they go search for God to help them, and then it just creates that vicious. The church is telling them, have more kids, which has never been a recipe for creating wealth. It's never been a recipe for self-realization and so forth. So that's, we need to break it somewhere. We have a growing generational and cultural gap. Some of you that are Latinos here, young, understand that the way your parents and grandparents is very different than what you are, and that's good. And we need to encourage schools to teach computer programming. You'll be amazed how much computer programming teaches about critical skills. So how to help if you're not a Latino? You need to include Latinos in your activities. Most speak English and are bilingual. Many don't even speak Spanish at all. And so, feel free to bring them in and so on. We'll translate, in HAFree, we'll translate your flyers for your groups and stuff like that, because sometimes, a Spanish subtitle, even though the whole meeting is in English and so forth, it's an eye-catching. It'll catch it and shows that you're in tune with what's going on. Donate secular books to your high schools. Go back to your old school, see your old teachers, and see if you can encourage high school students to get involved in there. Again, you don't have to be Latino to volunteer for a Hispanic secular nonprofit. Sponsor a young Latino to atheists and secular humanists. I usually tell that with the adults that have more money. Religion gives Latinas a sense of purpose and help, and we need to try to do that in the secular community. So we need to, and you see that little symbol in the right? For those of you that speak Spanish, it's actually an A, a T, and an O, which if you say the words in Spanish, if the spelling in Spanish, A, T, O, and then you say fast, means atheist. So that's before the Dawkins A came out and so on. This symbol among Latino Hispanics for atheism has been around for over a decade, maybe a decade and a half, just in case you see it. So supporting that kind of stuff. And if you are Hispanic, show that you care. Less talk, more doing. You gotta do something. Talking about it doesn't help necessarily. We have to be a mentor to the young, not necessarily trying to convert them, but just trying to get them to think reasonably. We need to teach Latino kids that femininity is not equal to subservience, that men and women must have an equal voice and equal opportunity, and we need to rebel against some dumb cultural absurdities. There are some in all cultures, there's that stuff, and we got to get rid of it and not feel that we're being traitors to the culture. If you're a Latino and a non-believer, I encourage you to come out. It'll be uncomfortable. It might, but really, no one's going to die. The Latinos don't care enough to get to that point. We need to stop being a divided community. We're all Americans. So, among Latinos, don't worry if somebody's Colombian, Cuban, Mexican, Chilean, whatever. The thing is, there are some subcultures within the Latino community, but we need to try to see each other as Americans and nothing else. We need to teach kids to question everything. And when I go to the schools, I tell them, question everything, and they'll ask, well, should I question my teacher, my parents, God? And I usually use the phrase, truth is never afraid to be questioned. So question away, question everything. Ask for evidence, raise consciousness at every opportunity. So some final thoughts. Latinos are now wielding a lot of power at the polls. That's only going to get bigger and bigger. So it's really up to us. It's really up to a lot of people, whether they become part of the Tea Party or they become more secular and less religious and vote, more on secular values than on religious values. Really, it's up to each one of you, American or Latino or mainstream, or we're all Americans, but mainstream, gringo or not, we're all here in the same country. We're all part of the same group. Latino culture, you'll find that it's already very humanistic. They like helping each other out. It's already, the only thing we're going to do is separate, make it just more secular. So I would say half the job is already done in that sense. We can help out by, if you ask for pamphlets, we can, put some pamphlets when we do tabling events, just so the Latinos that go by see that you are acknowledging that they're there, even if they speak English. To see something in Spanish or something, it might just show that you're in tune. And really, what we're trying to do is reach Latinos everywhere. So one last slide here is we're having the first Hispanic American Freethinkers Conference in February 28, 29, and April 1st of 2015. It sounds like a long time from now, but it's like a year and a half from now. And this is at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And the biggest problem that I have, and I mentioned this in the previous session in another place, is that the hard part is convincing people that this is for everybody, And the topic just happens to be Hispanics because it's 56 million people that we can't ignore. And if we do, it's going to be to our detriment, to everybody's detriment, the economy of the country and everything. So I hope that you all help me out in promoting this. It's early enough. I tell people, start saving some money. Washington is a great city. If you've never been to Washington, D.C., in my opinion, is the greatest city in the world. So I hope that you do come over there. And of course, if you're visiting Washington, D.C. at any time, drop me a note, an email. I'm always looking for an excuse for a glass of wine. So, do let me know. Now, I don't know if we have time, but, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts or comments on what I covered at the Speedy Gonzalez Speed here, because there's a lot of material. I mean, there are tons and tons and tons of numbers around. So if there are any questions, let me know. Okay. Yes, sir. Excellent. So one of the things that you do is see when you have a party or an event or something that is, watching a movie or something like that, try to look for the Latino groups in your school and invite them and say, hey, let's put together a movie, and make sure you put the movie so you can put something like The Ledge or something, And also, like I said, you can have your flyers, some of your flyers be put in Spanish, and maybe just the heading or something like that, so it'll catch the eye of somebody walking by. And but I mean, things like that in general. Try to get some debates going from some of the religious groups, and see, again, when you see the people around and you introducing yourself, you might be able to, some may be able to self-identify. Like I said, they come in every color or whatever. I've approached a few of you here and say, oh, by the way, are you Latino? And, and some I've eavesdropped on their phone conversation as they walk by. So anyway, so yeah, those are some of the things. And please, if you haven't been to the Hispanic American Freethinkers website, HAFree.org, and I have a Facebook page also. We have a Facebook page. do get in touch with me and everything, so we can stay in touch and we can continue the discussion. And I mean, we're all a big network. We need to keep it that way, so that, you know, what helps one helps the other. And I mean, I was talking to Dan earlier today that there are things that, you know, we can't all do everything. So we can work with each other to complement what we are good at. So that way we don't have to be trying to reinvent the wheel at every turn. So anytime I need to sue somebody, I just go to Dan, and he's got a ton of lawyers there. Thank you all.